Hi, I'm Chayale.
Hi, I'm Hinty. Welcome to Your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Tura's perspective on relationships. Hi,
Hello.
Hadasa. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited.
So, to get us started, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Hadasa Rosenblum. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 5 children, thank God. I guess I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I live in Kingston, Pennsylvania. And I work as a relationship coach.
Okay, amazing. How long have you been doing relationship for?
So I've been in the relationship world for quite a few years now. I want to say like 4. Really immersed myself, and it's been so life-changing for me. And now I have this beautiful gift to give to others. So it's really been amazing.
Okay, that's really, really exciting. And we're really excited that you're here and everyone's going to get to hear your perspective.
Thank you.
So, and are you exclusively coaching? Do you have any other work that you do?
That's a good question. I don't exclusively coach. Um, I actually I work at charity, so I also help nonprofit organizations raise money. And in addition to that, I also teach a class in my community, which has actually varied from relationships to Hasidus to Shar B'Tachon, which is really so enriching and such an incredible thing to be able to do with women in my community.
A lot of good things going on. If you're talking to uh, a girl who's about to get married or dating, she's
Yeah,
in the or engaged,
yeah.
um, what would you want her to know?
That's a really good question. I've thought about this because I think in my own experience, I felt when I was first married, even though I had a great example of my parents, I don't feel like I had tools of like, what are we supposed to do? What am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to do this? What is the right way? And, after really being immersed in relationships and also being, around a lot of women and being on kind of this topic of marriage, um, there's a few things that I really wish I knew, and I hope to be able to give this gift to others. And I am to people that are already married, but I think it would be so wonderful if girls can even learn this, either before or when they're newly married. And I think the 4 major things that I think would be so helpful is number one, understanding the difference between men and women. What's their primary values, right? And understanding how they contribute not just to the marriage, but to your children, right? Because once you understand that, and I'll get into it in a moment, but once you understand that, something that can feel very threatening really turns into something that is such an addition and such an asset, like to your family, to your marriage. The second thing is really the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like so much, the stories we tell ourselves really shape the reality of our lives, right?
Mm.
So I find this theme to really be coming up over and over again, not just in my own life, but with the women that I coach as well. Um, and it's something that once you notice can be so life changing because so much of our lives is in our heads, and it really does have an effect on the way we live, right? Because if we're in our head and we're making something to mean something, um, and it's not necessarily the case, but it's coming from a place of fear usually, right? um, we're living in really in a limited place. We're not living in our full like potential, and it's usually not coming, it's not a place of joy.
Mm.
But we really have the ability to change our perspective and live in a place of joy, even in challenging circumstances.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and I'll tell you the third thing that I really find to be so essential going into marriage is understanding that you marry exactly who you need to do your own inner work. Like, I truly believe that marriage is like the domain that really helps us mature and develop into the people that we're supposed to be. But sometimes, when challenges arise, it feels like, is this a mistake? Or, why is this happening? No. These triggers, everything that's coming up for you, whether it's internal, your own self-worth, or whether it feels external, is really divinely designed and like perfectly made for you and what your work is. And I think that change of perspective also helps when there's challenges, because you understand that it's totally meant for you. And this is where you're supposed to be. And this is the actual inner work you're supposed to be doing.
So what I'm hearing from you so far is, in terms of what do you feel like are the fundamentals for someone to have clarity on going into marriage, is first of all really understanding gender and what is a man and what is a woman, beyond gender stereotypes and like the typical maybe ways that we differentiate the genders, but really actually understanding on a deeper level, so that you can have the correct experience of your husband's behaviors. And then the second piece that I'm hearing is how this idea that our perspective is our reality. And I think I'm totally with you on this, because it's like something that becomes more and more true for me every day that I live. And it was something that I heard, and it resonated the first time I heard it, but I didn't quite get how far that goes and how real that is and how true that is and how really completely and totally transformational. So really getting into how we perceive, and like you said, the stories that we tell ourselves, and understanding how that could be the difference between living a life of joy or not. And it's not circumstance based. And the other piece that I'm hearing is how those moments in relationships, in marriage, that you really start to question your choices and this, like, what am I in? Those are actually key moments. And the fact that you're triggered, and you're triggered so badly, is by design. And that's where you're going to really step into your power and become the person that you were supposed to become. And it's really been designed by Hashem in exactly this way. So it's so hard when we feel like it's a mistake or it shouldn't be this way. Like, that's when it becomes excruciating. But if we know that it's completely intentional, it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, that opens up the space for us to take it on. So maybe we can dive into these and you can tell us some examples.
Sure, of course. So I think understanding the difference between men and women is so crucial. And I know for myself, and also working with women, it's life-changing, because, for example, something like, I'll give you an example in parenting, and then I'll give you an example in marriage. But like, for example, in parenting, I think many of us have been in a situation where, as women, we're the nurturers. We're there, like, we want to protect our children, we want to love them, we want to coddle them. And that's by design, and that's good. Many times, the father will push the children, right? And push them, where they're not comfortable. Like, learn that extra chapter, or you can do this extra thing, and the child is resisting that, right? The natural response of a woman would be to protect her child. And if you don't understand the difference between men and women and the contributions that we bring, not just in our marriage, but to our family and to our children, you'll see that as a threat rather than as a contribution. But once you start to understand that actually children need the nurturing from the mother, and they need this kind of pushing that the father brings, to their children. That actually is a recipe for a healthy child, right? And so then, even though your instinct might be like, oh my gosh, when you start to understand that this is actually a contribution, and this is the way that they were made, just like we were made as nurturers, this is the way that a man is made, and it's a contribution, you see it that way, and you're able to appreciate it rather than see it as a threat.
So let's say I'm hearing, a kid is studying for a test and he says,
Right.
I'm done. I've studied
Exactly.
enough. I know it. And his father says to him, nope, study for 5 more minutes. And he starts to, no, I've already studied for so long and I'm tired and I'm hungry and I want to go play. And his father's like, he's putting his foot down. You're going to put in another 5 minutes, not negotiable. And as a mom, you would come in and be like, yes, he hasn't eaten all day. He needs a break. It's been too long. And you think you're actually saving your kid. Like they need to be saved from their father who's going to push them like over the edge, and they're going to,
Exactly.
whatever else comes up for you, they're going to get traumatized and they're not going to want to study. So walk me through it. I'm sitting there, and what would I do differently if I knew what you're saying?
So if you didn't know differently, you would automatically go to save your child, which, by the way, is a whole nother set of issues that we'll just leave to the side today. But let's just focus on this. Once you understand it's a contribution, you understand it's actually really good for your children. I'll give you another example in this regard, okay? Men are very chesed and women are more gevura, right? So chesed, like, give them the candy, give them the soda, right? And I totally relate to this because, like, kids need to eat healthy and they need to go to bed on time. But once I learned this, for example, like, I used to put my foot down, like, no, they cannot have candy. No, they cannot stay up. It's not healthy. But then when I understood that actually they need the structure, but also like a really well-rounded childhood is like a childhood that has a little bit of candy, that stays up once in a while. And you know what? My kids are very lucky because if not for their father, they would have such a rigid life, right? And so something that I looked at as a threat before, after understanding that this is a contribution, I embrace it, right? And I have a more holistic point of view rather than just like this tunnel vision of what the feminine perspective is.
I love that. I like holistic. Like you're holding the two together. I'm going to bring the structure or I'm going to bring the nurture. And either in addition or to create this holistic and this wholesome experience for children, their father will bring the resilience or the generosity, the bending the rules or expanding the structure to have a little bit of flexibility. And as a result, you get this very holistic experience where you've had a healthy balance.
Yes. Yes. And it's important. And there's science to back this up as well. Like
Tell
what
us
they
the
get from
science.
their what they get from their father, like something like I learned actually, in the last few years is like that like kind of aggressive play with boys is actually very good for their children. And I used to have this perspective of, wow, that's so childish. Like, why are you like rough playing with the boys? Like you're not their brother, you're their father. But once I understood, actually, like developmentally, it's very good for boys to have that. And when they have a father that's like silly with them and rough playing with them, it's actually very good for them. And that totally shifted my perspective, right? Because like now I understand it's actually really good that they're getting this, and that silly side is actually really good, and that even pushing them a little bit over the edge is good.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that when you have that, when a woman has that shift, then obviously that's a completely different experience of her husband, meaning, okay, you're
Correct.
immature, why do you have to play with little children, like roll around on the floor, as opposed to being like, oh, this is the same way that I fed my kids dinner and they need that to grow and be healthy, like this is the next thing on their list that they need and you're providing it for them.
Correct. Correct. And they need that male energy and that male perspective because we don't have it.
We don't have everything.
No.
Really? No.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to, it's a hard pill sometimes to swallow that the mother doesn't have everything that the child needs.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a reason that Hashem built it this way, where they have a father and a mother, because they really do need both of these energies and values and whatever they bring.
Amazing. Any other examples of like masculine, feminine differences that you feel like
Yeah.
are?
So I want to give an example within the context of marriage, right? A very typical example is the way that we experience love and connection can be different from the way that a man can even initially express it, right? So from our point of view, from a woman's point of view, the only way, unless you are able to have a broader perspective and really learn this, the only way is if you're sitting and you're talking with me and you're asking me about my day and you're really, and then you tell me about your day, but like if it's not exactly like this and you're just like sitting there and you're not really communicating, like you're not really connecting with me, right? And you're not really loving.
If we're not having a DMC with eye contact, like we're just not connecting.
It's not it. It's not where it's at. But really, like once you understand how a man expresses his love and connection by contributing financially, by contributing to the household, by contributing to just and by commitment, right? By just being your husband, like in his mind, I committed to you, so like I'm totally here, I'm totally connected to you. It's not to say, by the way, that you can't have a desire to connect in certain ways, but what that means is don't dismiss the ways that he's showing up and connecting to you, even if it's not in the way that you perceive in the feminine way as connection. Once you're able to understand that actually, like, he is showing up, he's totally here, he every day goes to work and he is not just committed but providing, he comes and in his mind sitting next to you is connecting. Instead of dismissing it and you see that as a contribution, it actually opens up the door for more connection, and for more connections even in the way that you want. So I think that that's another perspective shift. Like, you know, if you only can see it from like the feminine perspective, that this is the only way to have real connection, then you'll really miss out on all the ways that connection is already available, which is a shame, but it also shuts out more connection and in the ways that you want.
So I'm hearing like a woman sitting on the couch with her husband. She wants to have this conversation and he's there, but maybe he's not sharing so much, or he's giving her one word answers, or he's reading something. And her sense is, I don't know what's going through her head.
So this actually leads into like one of the other topics that we spoke about, but like sometimes like she'll create a story in her head of like, he doesn't really care about me, he's not really connected to me, he doesn't care to connect to me, right? But if you understand that really from a man's perspective he is connecting, then you don't have to be worried and fall into that fear, right? Just because it's not in the feminine way doesn't mean it's not happening. And so once you're open to that, you could have the desire, but it's not coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of I would love more of that, but it's also a place of openness and receiving what already is available and there.
Right. So like she could be sitting there having this whole story that starts forming in her head of like their relationship's falling apart, or it's not strong and they're not connected and they need to go for couples counseling. And
there's no emotional connection.
Right. We don't have an emotional connection. And what you're describing is from the masculine paradigm, the masculine perspective, his presence, I'm sitting next to my wife. Let's say I went to work today to provide for my family. I'm here. Like the sense of like, I'm here and I'm yours, just energetically, physically, right? Like this is me, I'm here, I'm yours. He in his experience and in his makeup, that is connection.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more element to this. When you have that perspective shift where you understand that he is there, present, and totally connected to you, you're able to receive what he's giving, right? And that's like such a foundational piece to marriage and to having really true connection, is being able to receive what your husband's already giving, which again opens the door to more of that.
Beautiful. On a practical level, if you're sitting in that space and you're seeing this as we have a base of connection, or we are connected, and then maybe I want to have a conversation about something specific, or I want to share something with my husband, I want him to share something with me, energetically the way that you approach that is not going to be from that state of panic.
Yeah.
And it is like, we know, I'm sure if people, you can reflect on the difference when like you're opening a conversation feeling like, you know, we're in a good place and I want to hear more, I want to share. Or, you know, when a woman has that, like, you don't love me, you don't care about me, you don't want to be with me, and then usually that becomes the conversation.
Right. And so like the difference would be like, thank you for sitting next to me. I love it when we're near each other. It means so much to me, because you're seeing that as a contribution versus, how come we never talk? How come we never have a conversation? How come you never have what to share with me? Like, are we even connected? And you see the difference?
Yeah, that was that yeah, like, just to be able to say like, you're next to me, and that means a lot to me. You're here. Like, for a woman being able to receive that, and when she expresses it, it's powerful usually for her, because she has to like bring that into words, like, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I like it. I think like something that maybe can be harder for women is, and this also has to do with the nature, right? Like, we are very home based. So like, in that nurturing sense of like, what commitment looks like to a woman is not exactly the way commitment looks like to a man.
Correct.
And a woman, you know, I've definitely had this conversation with women where we'll talk about how, let's say, their husband's showing up for their community or for their work. You know, a husband's a hatzala or a shliach or I don't know, or he runs the kiddush club at the shul. And there being the sense of like, why doesn't he have his priorities? Why isn't his priority the home? And like a more zoomed out perspective of like a person who has a broader range of impact, which ends up being something that you can even receive, because he's your husband and this is part of who you are and an example that your children sees. So just like you're saying, that shift out of being threatened.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to see values outside of our relationship as well, because they are ultimately contributions to us, to our family. But like you said, like this contribution of commitment to the community or commitment outside of your family, it's exactly that. It's when you understand that this is healthy masculinity. This is exactly what you want overall. Um, it's totally a perspective shift in the way that you see his contributions or his commitments.
I love that. Okay, so any other examples that we want to bring up of masculine feminine differences, or
I think we're good.
we're moving forward?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I think like this, like you said, this already started coming up in this conversation where like your perspective is your reality, or the stories that we tell ourselves. So
Yes.
tell me more about that, why that feels so significant.
Yeah. So, like you said earlier, like I've seen this for sure in my own life, and for sure this is a discussion that's constantly being had with women, right? I think that this whole idea of like the stories that we tell ourselves is usually coming from a place of fear, right? It's a way for us to feel like we're protecting ourselves, but usually it's not. So let me give you an example. right? So like a wife could be waiting for her husband to come home from work, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's waiting to connect. She's waiting for him to help, right? And then he comes home and he sits down on the couch and he goes on his phone. Okay?
Never happens.
Never. But a lot of times what will happen is like a woman will start to build a story in her head, and most times it's subconscious. She'll only realize it afterwards, right?
Mm.
But the story that a lot of times will come up is, oh my goodness, how selfish. And like, does he not see that he has a wife and children? He comes home and the first thing he does is look on his phone. I mean, am I invisible to him? I mean, the story, I could go on and on, like whatever the story is, right? I think the thing that you have to notice, and once you start noticing this, it's life changing, is okay, this story, how is this story, this perspective that I have right now, how's that impacting me? And is it even the truth, right? So first, let's just look how it's impacting her, right? And then we'll examine, is this even the truth? Like the whole truth? If she's feeling like he doesn't care about her, that he's selfish, that, you know, he's not there for the family, right? All the stories that she's telling, she's probably feeling defeated, disconnected, very unhappy. And there's probably also a lot of anxiety and fear that comes along with that. Like, oh my God, what's with my marriage? What's with my husband? What kind of father, right? So she's definitely leaving her in a very defeated spot, in a very negative spot, right? What if she was able to take a step back and just look at the facts? The facts are, I had this expectation for him to come home and right away greet me and talk to me, right? Okay, it's natural and normal to feel a little bit of disappointment, okay? But what if there's another perspective? Maybe he had a hard day at work and he just wants to zone out for a few minutes, right? And it has nothing to do with you. He wasn't thinking that he doesn't want to disconnect from, that he wants to disconnect from you, or that he's, you know, it really had nothing to do with you, right? If you're able to step outside yourself. And I think that really this is part of like this maturing character building process that happens in marriage. But if she's able to have a different perspective and understand he still loves me, he's still here for me, he might have just had a really hard day. First of all, how is she feeling if she has that perspective shift? She's probably feeling for sure more connected than she would have with the other perspective.
Mm.
She doesn't feel necessarily this like helpless feeling of like, oh my God, what is happening? I don't have a husband or father. She understands like he just had a hard day. It's not to say she can't have a desire here for connection when he comes home, but focusing on the perspective, it really has a very direct effect on the quality of life that a person has. So once she has this different perspective of, he's there for me, he loves me, we're connected, he probably just had a hard day, nothing to do with me, she's also able to approach it not from a place of fear, right? And just as a side point, usually when we conduct ourselves from a place of fear, it usually brings out that fear, right? So like if she was fearing like we're totally disconnected, he's totally not there, and she expressed that and she said like, I can't believe you just came home and you went straight to your phone. Like, do you even think about us? Like, do you realize like we were waiting the whole day? Do you realize I'm with the kids the whole day? Like, right? He'll probably feel attacked. He'll either retreat, but definitely there will not be connection there in most cases, right? And so the thing she really feared that like, you know, there's something bigger going on, she'll have evidence for that, right?
She
Versus
actualizes.
she actualizes it, which tends to happen a lot of times when we actually, again, express ourselves from this place of fear, right? Instead of first doing the internal work of like, hey, what's really going on here? But what, like, if she's able to shift her perspective and really look at like, okay, what's really going on here? There's the facts. He came home, he went on his phone. Does it have to mean that he doesn't care? Could there be some other explanation? I'm going to choose to believe that he totally does care and, you know, there's something else going on. And then she approaches him of, I'm so happy you're home. I would love to connect with you after you eat dinner. I mean, probably a totally different response.
It's crazy because something that you pointed out, which I think is super important, is that a woman doesn't necessarily realize that she has a story till never, or, hopefully she eventually does. But basically what happens is because that story it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like like a natural understanding of what's going on. It's not like I have a fear, I have a story. It's just like, this is what's happening. He is being selfish. He doesn't want to connect with me. It's not what's happening and the story, it's what's happening. This is what's happening. So that all happens so quickly and so seamlessly. And then what you said, which is the actualization of it. So then she gets the reaction, and then it's right away confirms the assessment. And that all just is so seamless that why would you suggest like anything else? I'm saying like, this is obvious. He didn't want to look proof. Yeah. End of.
Yeah, I think that's why this awareness around like examining what is going on in our brains, and many times in the beginning it could be in retrospect, like, hey, how did I get here? Why do I feel so disconnected? Why am I feeling so anxious? What was going on in my brain? And when you take a step back, you could really look at it like, oh wow, I really was afraid that he didn't want to connect with me. Let me examine that. Is that true? Right? So I think first of all, having the awareness and being aware of our thoughts is step number one, right? If you're not aware that you are separate from your thoughts, then you will think that whatever you feel is one and the same with reality, which is not the case a lot of times. What we decide
I want to pause on that because I think it's such a good tip. Let's say, especially if someone's like starting this process, so they're not used to creating that separation, me and my thoughts. In retrospect, it's like when they do, on a sports game, when you watch the replay, like they slow it down and it's like, okay, let's see exactly what happened, who went, where, when. So when I find myself somewhere and I'm like, how did I get here? So it's like, okay, let's watch the replay, but let's watch the replay majorly in slow motion so I can notice like all the internal steps. And that's a very good way to train ourselves to start to build that space between me, my thoughts, me, my interpretations, me, my stories, my feelings.
There's also another way, which is that this really had a really major impact in my life, which is if you find yourself in a place of feeling defeated, unhappy, disconnected, disempowered, like helpless, then it's totally not aligned with Hashem's reality. So you know right away that there can be a different way, right? So if you see the result is that you're feeling helpless, hopeless, defeated, no love, no joy, no connection, then that's a telltale sign. That something needs to be examined here. In terms of your perspective.
Very powerful. Yeah. Like it's already an indicator that whole experience means something's off. It's not the way things are supposed to be. That's not Hashem's reality. That's not truth.
Right. And Hashem wants us to ultimately climb to a place of being empowered, joyful, connected, all the good things. Like that's where we're supposed to land. Obviously, we're challenged and we do find ourselves in places of feeling sad, disconnected, defeated. But that's just a sign to show us where to go.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's really powerful. Do you want to give another example or, I mean, I know really everything we're saying is examples of perspective shifts.
Yeah, I think like even looking at somebody's internal dialogue with themselves. So for example, in regards to mothering, this can happen a lot where you'll mess up, you'll scream at your child, right? And then the self-talk starts to happen, the story around it. So first, I'm not good enough. I'm such a bad mother. I'm so worthless. And then the other part of the story of, I just messed up my child. There's no hope. I just ruined them for life. It sounds so silly, but we all have this internally,
No,
and it has happened to us.
I'm not laughing
Yeah,
because it's silly. I'm laughing because I think
because
every
it's
mother
happened.
listening to this is going to be like,
Totally.
very familiar.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, first of all, if you are having all of these thoughts and you come to a place of feeling defeated, again, telltale sign. You're not supposed to land there. When you start to have a broader perspective of, I'm human, so I'm going to mess up, even as a mother, but I'm still whole, and I'm still not just a good mother, but exactly the mother that my child needs. And then once you start to realize the truth, because that's really the truth, then you feel centered, grounded, right, whole, and actually you're probably better equipped to repair in a proper, wholesome way than if you were feeling like, wow, I'm just not good enough and my poor child's just ruined for life.
Yeah, it's such an important and so relatable piece. Like, if we come at the repair from a place of I'm a terrible mother and you're ruined for life, then we're not in a space to actually parent when we're there.
Yes.
And it's not about our child, it's about us and some, unrealistic measure of perfection that I don't know, we've deluded to ourselves is what we need to be doing.
Yes.
And
That's part of it. I think that's part of it. It's like a lot of the stories we tell ourselves is like, I have to be perfect. Wait. Take a step back. Whoever said that parenting is supposed to be perfect, right? Part of their learning experience is us messing up sometimes. And that's okay.
yeah, and the beauty of them seeing imperfect parents grow and learn and apologize
Yes.
and
Yeah, that's
giving them the space to be imperfect
100%.
and not hate themselves for it.
Exactly. That's such an important point. Like, even in this, in regards to parenting, like, we think like that's the story we tell ourselves. We have to be perfect in order for our child to grow up healthy. And in fact, it's the opposite. It's when they see that you messed up and you're able to repair and you still have self-love and you're still okay. What a powerful lesson for the child.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, yeah, I'm just breathing that one in before we move forward. Okay, yeah, I love that. I love that example. Moving on to your next super important truth bomb of the challenges being designed. Yeah. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, and for a lot of women, this is early in marriage, where they feel like, oh, wow, I'm challenged in a certain area in my marriage. Did I marry the wrong person? Or what's going on here? Like, there must be something wrong. But it's in fact very right. It's exactly where we all need to be. And Hashem actually pairs us and with exactly who we need in order to actualize who we're supposed to be, right? Our full, developed, mature selves. I think this understanding, this underlying understanding, is so important because it could feel very senseless if you believe like something's wrong here. But if you understand that this is your purpose, part of your purpose is developing yourself, developing your character, and you were paired with exactly the person that's going to help you do that, it gives so much meaning to the challenge.
You know where I see this, like it becomes so evident how the pairing is so specific and like the challenge, the way somebody trigger, like the way spouses trigger each other. When you've either had the opportunity to coach different women or as a woman, you just know like different women and what challenges them. It's like you have one woman that comes and her challenge, let's say, is her husband's has, comes home very late and she hardly sees him, and that triggers her to no end. And then the next woman comes and tells you, I need my husband, to spend a little bit more time out of the house. Like he could find a second job, like he's just around. Like I wish he was more productive. I wish he was more part of things or busy or like, and I'm like, just switch. Like why? And it's like exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying. Like Hashem gave her that husband that doesn't come home, and she wants one. Like she thinks she wants one that does come home, and it's so specific. And the more we see like how triggered we are in our personal situation, it's that itself is an indication of like, no, this was literally designed for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And triggers in general are always a sign that there's some inner work that's uh, available, and there's an opportunity for you there, right? Triggers have really nothing to do with anybody else outside of you. It has everything to do with yourself and your own inner work. And it definitely comes up in marriage with the person that you're living with. Um, and a lot of times, like, it can show up in ways of like just even your own insecurity. Like, for example, like a husband will comment on the dinner that the wife made. For some women, that will bring out a whole set of insecurities, right? Of like, first of all, a lot of times it will be directed at him of like, oh my God, what kind of husband comments? I worked so hard. And he could
Mm-hmm.
mean nothing by it. He could just say like, this is all for dinner. And she could be like, are you how insensitive? Are you joking? I just spent like an hour and a half on dinner.
Yeah.
Like, and like, and she'll direct it because really what's triggering her is her own insecurity around probably attaching her self-worth to making dinner, or
Mm.
attaching her worth as a wife to dinner, right? And so that really comes down to, oh, that's a sign that like I'm not so secure in my self-worth. Something really to look at and to work on, right?
Yeah. So just even in the context of perspective shifts, like a whole perspective on triggers in general being like growth invitations, right? An invitation to mature, to develop, to deepen my confidence, my self-worth. Why is this bothering me so much?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an opportunity for me to look at myself and really understand what's it
Yeah.
bringing up for me.
Yeah, so true. And a lot of times what will bring up is like insecurity, scarcity mindset, self-worth issues, you know, things like that. Um, but even going back to like, like the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like even going back to that, that's like such a beautiful example actually of where there's an opportunity for really expanding ourselves and really maturing and growing our character, right? Because you can stay limited in a very childish perspective, right? Or you have the opportunity now to really expand yourself. And like I said before, I really think that marriage is the arena and the domain for this kind of self-work, amongst the other things like mothering and stuff like that, but definitely one of the main arenas.
Yeah, and again, that perspective of on the challenges of marriage, we can like you were saying, the challenge has meaning, the challenge has purpose, and there's also like it, it's I don't have to freak out and spiral because or judge because I get to now expand, mature, deepen my
Yeah,
connection with Hashem, myself, become more confident. And that's the whole reason why any of this happened to begin with.
very well said.
You
Hmm.
said it, not me.
Hmm.
Okay, so before before we wrap up, any anything else you want to share to our amazing audience of women that you feel is a truth nugget in this um, wonderful role as wives and mothers.
Yes. I think there's one thing that I also think is super important, which is making sure that you nurture the part of yourself as a mother that's not a mother and wife, meaning the individual, the individual person that you are. You are an individual soul, besides for being a mother and a wife, which is such foundational roles for sure. But there's also a person outside of that. And I think that I feel very passionate about this. I think that needs to be something that is nurtured, addressed, and never ignored.
Tell me more.
So I think one way of looking at it is, for some women, they know that there's, let's say, a career outside of being a mother and a wife that really, really fills them up and really nurtures them and really
They're passionate.
They're passionate, right? It makes them alive, right? But then it doesn't have to be that. And one way to look at it is, am I nurturing my mind, body, heart, and soul? Meaning my mind, am I like intellectually stimulating myself? And like, thank God, like nowadays there's so much out there. There's podcasts, right? There's, there in many communities there's CRM, like there's, or maybe it's outside of that you have curiosity, and it's something worth looking into and developing and like really exploring. What am I interested in intellectually, right? There's heart, which is emotional connections. And I think as women, we understand this, like making sure that you are nurturing, that part of you that's connection with maybe siblings, but friends, and like making that, a priority. Right? And then there's the body, making sure that, you're taking care of yourself, right? Like, are you exercising? Are you eating right? And then there's the soul, which is, for some people, that's taking the time to meditate, to daven, to learn, right? For everybody, that could look a little bit different, but really nurturing that part of us. It's a very real part of us. And ultimately, when we do that, we do show up as better as wives and mothers, right? But I don't think that's the only reason. I think that you are a unique and special human being that's separate from just that. And it's important to understand that you're worthy of all these things.
To have an identity that's yours.
Correct.
It's exclusive
Correct.
to you. That's not in context of a role that you play.
Yeah. And I think like the opposite end of this is like a lot of times women will lose themselves, their own identities in motherhood, right? In being a homemaker, right? And usually it's a painful process finding your way back to yourself. So if women knew that they can start off with prioritizing themselves, not in a selfish way, right? But really in a way just like you would want to nurture your children. You're also worthy of that. And prioritizing that, from the get-go, then I think it's a benefit to everyone, to your family, to yourself, to your community, to everyone around you.
Yeah. And I hear and I think it's important to acknowledge that yes, there are women, and I'm sure some of you are here listening that have lost themselves, and it happens, and it's natural, and it's very much motherhood and homemaking and being a wife are because of their tremendous value, they're tremendously consuming. And we didn't necessarily always know or understand or realize that we do deserve, and it is important to have this individual identity, that we nurture ourselves just as people, as individuals, mind, body, soul, heart. So yeah, you can walk yourself out of that.
Yeah, and it starts with little steps. You don't have to do everything at once. Choose one thing that you want to start focusing on, and start with one step. It's really so important.
Yeah, I love that. Do you want to throw in some? I mean, you did throw in shiurim in your community, meditation.
For some people, it's tehillim, right? For some people, it's davening. For some people, it's music. you know? But I'm saying, really, for everybody it looks different, and if you don't know yet what it is, try different things, right? If you don't know how to, nurture connections, try to make a date with a friend, see how that goes. Or if you're not sure how to nurture your soul, try, sitting a few minutes and saying to him, see if that speaks to you, or listening to music, right? You might not know right away what really nurtures you in all these areas, but it's okay to try and see what works for you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think the theme that we have running through, which you're sharing so beautifully, is it really all starts with the perspective. Like the exploration and the experimentation comes second to the awareness of, have I nurtured myself? Am I nurturing myself as an individual? Do I recognize my individual identity? And myself as a person, somebody's child who the same way my children, I want to develop them mentally and emotionally, physically and spiritually. I'm also someone's child, God's child, and
Yes.
He wants me to be maximizing my potential also as an individual. So starting with the perspective shift and then the implementation that follows.
Yes, I love how you put that. Yes.
Okay, so just to close, I'm going to ask you some fun little rapid fire questions. Just say whatever comes to mind. A favorite book, or a book that you right now are feeling passionate about or into or living with?
I just read Ellie Sharabi's book, Hostage, which I just think is so powerful, and so many of these ideas are really actualized in his experience.
Wow.
It's so inspiring.
That's brave. I'm too scared to read it.
It's not so bad.
Okay.
We could talk after about it.
Learning or davening, what speaks to you more?
Learning, for sure.
Any era that if you could travel to and live there?
Oh, I love this question. I think because I'm named after Queen Esther, as a child, I always wanted to go back in time there and
be there,
experience and talk to her. Exactly.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah. And what's your favorite form of self-care?
My favorite form is...
Or if I reword it in the spirit of our conversation, of nurturing yourself as an individual.
Okay. That's a really good question. First of all, speaking to my sisters is so nurturing, but also hanging out with really good friends and learning with them is also a really good form of nurturing for me.
Hadasa, thank you so much. This was such a rich and deep conversation, and one that I know so many women will benefit from. Thank you for being here and bringing us your light and your wisdom and your joy. And
thank you so much for having me. It was really such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.